Okay, I'm going to go ahead and get started. This is Frank over at Sylvan, and we'll start taking a look at what's out here in I just noticed the title on the slide is wrong. But what I wanted to do was just talk a little bit about 7.1 today and what's going to be coming up in the new 7.1 release. Just a little bit of information for you on 7.1. The release date on that is going to be, or you're going to get a notice anyways, on January 22nd, I believe. And you'll be able to see what's going on in terms of what's out there in 7.1. There'll be a what's new doc that will be attached to that has all of the information about 7.1. You'll be able to see this stuff. I will show this some today, so you'll see some of this, but this is there. I'll actually make this also just a little bit larger so we can look at that a little better. With that, there's a number of things to talk about in 7.1, and I think I'm going to break this down into a couple of ideas. One of the first is, as I've talked about before, a big focus of what we're doing in Stratum right now is on what we call user-controlled data, or just the capturing of information and allowing you to more easily put more and different kinds of information into Stratum. And part of that is around this user-controlled data at the top, as well as some of the stuff down at the bottom here, which is the idea of today everyone's using some ETL process. We want to introduce a new product for ETL, which is StratumLink, and also a way to get Excel data in as well as create plans. But in addition to that, we've made a number of feature changes within Stratum itself that I thought were worth talking about first. So these features are available to everyone that has Viewer. You'll be able to take advantage of some of this stuff in no particular order. I was just going to go through what some of those are. So the first is hopefully everyone's on a release that has recents and favorites in it. So you have this particular window here that I've got. And if you don't have a version that has this, you need to get upgraded, because that would mean you're on an unsupported version. But anyways, what we have here, we added to this so you can search views. Now, a lot of the changes that I'm going to show here actually are things that have come through either direct user requests or certainly things people have kind of conceptually asked for and how we've interpreted those. So it is valuable for us to know what you guys are thinking, and what you're thinking would help to add to Stratum, so just let us know. But here I'm going to search. You can now search for views if they're not in your recent favorites. I know a lot of people over on the left have tons and tons of things. I saw one of the companies we work with, I saw a couple people here, John and Roz, that have thousands and thousands and thousands of views. And so you can search for stuff here, and now you can put this in. I just searched on the word margin, and this brought back a list of all the views that have the word margin in their description. So I think this is a really cool feature. I know another thing that people often do is they put like their initials on a view so they can find all their own views. Searched on my initials, that showed up. Whenever you're in this window, you can see here, this is the search window that you guys are familiar with. Anyone that's a view administrator has seen this window, so you can pare this down into looking for a particular user or just personal views, things like that. That's one of the filters available. The other filter that's here that I've gotten questions about is you can search all the views, just active views or inactive views. And a lot of people ask me what's active and inactive views. So a couple of releases ago, we introduced a feature where you can move views in mass to, say, an archive view group, one of these groups over on the left. So you could create an archive view group. You can also mark these view groups now, and this happened, as I mentioned, a release or so ago, into being active or inactive. So you can have us search just the active views and active views. And in fact, if you've archived a bunch of views and someone goes, hey, where'd my blah, blah, blah view go, you can now go, hey, let me search my inactive views and see if I put it out there. Obviously, you can search all views as well. So new search facility, I think that's really cool. Let you find views that you want to see out there. Another feature that was added is the ability to cancel a view. So one of the things before I go on to this, I think I should just mention the window down here. You guys, when you see this pop up, be aware you can click right here and this will, whenever you have a new version, and this little box is coming up, this will take you to the What's New document. You might want to let your users know that so they can read about any new features and the stuff I'm talking about. So back to our story. Another feature that we added. So I'm gonna run this view. This is a product bill of materials view that shows me all the components within a product. But the thing to watch here is that when the view is running, a cancel button is going to come up. So here I go. I'm going to run this for all my products, and you'll see here I now have a cancel button. So that allows me to, if I click on that button, I can actually stop this view from running. So if it's a long-running view and it's taken too long or it's chewing up a lot of resources, you now have a way to get out of that and run that. So that's one part. So that's one part of that change. A second part of that change is a change to admin that allows us to now go in. I'm going to go down to admin here and open my admin, and this will allow me to see what we call the view monitor. Right now, I don't have any long-running views, but I do have a screenshot of this that I can show you. I'm going to go to the What's New document here and just scroll down a little bit and show you here. Yep, here we go. You'll be able to see, you can see two things here. One, the view monitor I was talking about. So this shows me any views that are out there. They're running as a administrator. I can come in and I can cancel these. For those of you that understand some of the technology behind this, the good news here that we're actually going out getting session data and canceling these. So this will reduce the impact on a server of those views, much different than if you just close the tab you're on. In the background, some of the stuff is still running when you do that. By canceling the view, we're actually canceling the query, et cetera. So this is a feature, again, that a bunch of people asked for that you can see. Another feature, while I'm on this page in the What's New, you can see here that there in user profile, it actually shows me the last time this user profile actually did something. So yeah, this is a new column in there, and you can, of course, just by clicking on these, you can sort on these, so you'll be able to see that as well. So that's another new feature available to everyone. Let's see, back into Stratum itself. Let's go into another view here. I'll run, let's see, maybe some vendor performance stuff. But anyways, what I wanted to show here was the idea that if I have column headings, we've made it much simpler to change the column headings. So I can come in here. If you guys, hopefully you guys are familiar with this new window, which is in fact the measure window. I like this measure window quite a bit. I work from here a lot now. But when you go into a calculated measure, let's say I'm looking at on-time delivery. Let's say I want to change this, say on-time delivery status, for example. I don't like this heading. I can easily come here. That heading is here. You used to have to click on the ellipse button to make any changes. You can actually now just change this right here. I can say OK, and of course that'll flow through. You'll see it popped up right there. And now when I click OK, that'll flow through to the view. So again, just a small nit there, but a very easy way for people to be able to make changes to headings. Hopefully what you guys will see in the future when I'm in here is when you're in a regular measure, we'll get some of the stuff where you can change the format and most importantly probably the header in this window as well. So we're talking about how to best integrate that functionality back into a regular measure. Right now it's available in calculated measures. Another thing that's available now that I think is cool for new users, so for those of you that are responsible for educating users or you're introducing new users to Stratum, over here in the setup stuff, there's a getting started feature. So you can kind of go around the pinwheel here, and this will take me into different videos where you can learn the basics of using Viewer. You know, I think this is good stuff. This is a great series we put together and allows you to see that kind of stuff. So you can see that. So that's the getting started stuff. Another couple of things, just smaller changes that we added as well that are available to everyone. One is within a conditional format. If I go here and I highlight, or if I go here, I'll just go to the properties for this. This has a conditional format on it. If I go down to conditional formatting, If I go in and look at the icons that are available, you now have some additional icons. We got requests for thumbs up and stuff like that. So just another whole set of icons you can have here, whether you're indicating, flagging things, things like that. So just to spice up the views a little bit, some of that was added. Then one last thing I wanted to talk about that's a recent addition as well. For those of you that have a QA or a development copy or a test copy of Stratum sitting out there, you can now indicate that that in the logo right up in the corner here. Let me show you. I have a screenshot of how that would work, and that's in here. If I go here, yeah, here we go. You can see that you have some new logos. You can see this is I've set this up as a test version. But these are some default logos in the install instructions. There's some instructions on how you can insert this into one of your versions. So if you want to make sure people are easily being able to distinguish between test or QA or Info Center, you can do that. In addition, I just thought this was a good time to mention you've always been able to change what's in the tab right here. So you can see here, I call this my Stratum Daily Demo. If you want to see how that works, back over to Stratum here, if I go into admin, this is a feature in the application setup where right here I can change what's in the tab that displays up at the top here. So if you want to identify, again, another way to identify different versions of Stratum. So you can do that as well. Let me see, what else did I want to show here? Okay, so all of those changes, as well as any of the feature function, like obviously the measure button that came out previously, and I know there's some people on the phone that actually aren't upgraded yet to get the navigation pane. All of that stuff is available to everyone in Viewer, so those are changes that are available. Now the next set of changes I want to talk to are available to you if you have certain features in Stratum. The first one I'll talk about real quick is the broadcast server. And this allows you now in the broadcast server, if you're using actions with multiple views in them, you can go ahead and actually change the order of the views and how they appear. So if I go into an action here, I'll bring up my daily sales package action. If I scroll down, you'll see I have 3 or 4 views in here. I can actually highlight one of these and I can begin to move it up or down. So this takes me to a window that lets me change that stuff. If I come in here, let's see, yep. And that should show up in that window, and I can change the order there. So it allows me to drag these around and move them and change the order. So what's significant about that is this will be the order that the tabs show up in the delivered spreadsheet. So you'll be able to see that. So that's a feature for broadcast server users. And by the way, when I talk about these features, they're like broadcast users. The next set I'm going to talk about is actually in planning, certainly for those 2 features. First of all, if you own those, obviously you have access to them. Secondly, if you're a user-based license, you have access to those. And if you're not using them, you should let us know. We can turn those on. And third, if you don't have those features today, certainly feel free to contact us. We can give you a key, a temporary key, and you can trial those features. So you can take a whack at them and see what you think, and then we can work with you to see how you best get those. But the next feature I wanted to talk about was the new data import feature. So this is a cool feature. I like this a lot. I've done another session on this. I won't go into a ton of detail here on this, but let's say that you have data in a spreadsheet that you want to get into Stratum. Here's a spreadsheet that I have of data I've actually exported from our CRM system. So I've got a bunch of stuff by, when the date was. These are actually opportunities from a CRM. But this could be budget data, for example, would be another big one people have talked to us about. And you can go ahead and I've got this by division. I've got this by rep. I've got it by customer. And I've got it by brand and product. So I've got this data that way, and then I've got some different price and cost data out here on the right that I want to import. So I can import this data using our new data import feature. And what this data import feature does is essentially allows me, you can see I've imported this stuff before, but it allows me to actually import that spreadsheet. I can add or replace the data here, so I'll just do a replace. And we have a mapping facility, so I've brought that spreadsheet into Stratum. I just selected it, And once I've selected it, I can say, what do I want to do with the opportunity date? I don't want to ignore it because that's my transaction date. So here I'm going to say that's a date. So it identified how that date's stored. What do I want to do with this division identifier? It's a division. It's a dimension. So I selected dimension, and it happens to be division. And once you've imported a spreadsheet, it remembers that spreadsheet and the headings you used. So even if you import another spreadsheet, it'll actually remember the heading. So it's pretty smart, this mapping facility. And it goes through and ultimately lets me say, where do I want to put this stuff? You can see I'm putting this into my opportunity working field. I'm going to re-update this data, so I did a replace. And then all you do is you click this button, and it will allow me to import that data. That data will come in quite quickly. It only takes a couple minutes to run that. I have a couple of examples of this stuff out there that you can see, and I thought I would just, so I go into quite a bit of detail on this, and actually the next thing I'm going to talk about as well, which is our new StratumLink import process. So if you go off your home page, if you go to archived courses, you can see here under new insight, I have a whole thing on using the data import facility where I have a little more time than what we have today to go through that. It's I don't know, 30 minutes, maybe a little less, and of course, so I always say you can play those at double speed or 1.5 speed, and it doesn't take quite as long. So you don't have to listen to me rattle on quite so much. But anyways, this is very specifically on the data import feature. So if you guys are interested in seeing that, more about that than what I've just shown, you can see this. And then while I'm in here, and I'll talk a little bit about this coming up in a sec, but is also on down here in new releases, you'll see there's a new solution that I'm going to talk about in just a second. New product we're offering is as part of the 7.1 is what we call StratumLink, and I did a discussion on this as well. So certainly feel free to take a look at these, or if you want to know more detail on them, don't hesitate to get in touch with us, and we can do a demo, maybe get some stuff installed so you can prototype some stuff, try that. So, but this is good feature function that relates back to our strategy that I mentioned when we're in Stratum about just getting data into Stratum and opening the door for you being able to combine additional information that users or analysts can import into Stratum very easily and combine it with what you already have in Stratum. So you don't have to give up the control and the governance of what you have, but you can add to that and let people see additional data in context with that core information that you have in Stratum today. And I think that's a key feature that we want to introduce and continue to build on in Stratum. So these features are out there and available to people. As I mentioned, the next thing I wanted to show was some stuff about our new StratumLink product. I'm just, again, going to give you a quick overview of that, and we'll see what we have. So what we have is it's a website. I can go to a website here. This is a StratumLink website, and you can create what we call scenarios, and these scenarios allow you to move information from some data source, whatever that might be, and those sources can take on a lot of different kinds of things. In fact, if I came here and created a new source, you'll see here this is a drop down. This SF is Salesforce. You can get stuff from AWS, from SQL Server, obviously, HANA. You could get stuff from just about anywhere. And if we don't have a source listed here that you guys want to try and use, we're very interested in continuing to expand these sources, and we can do that, whether it's data coming through an API or there's a database that you don't have here. Excel, I'm trying to think, SQL Server, DB2 up on the AS400, these are all, or on the IBM I, these are all sources that we support today, and I can bring data in. And this is, again, in that demo or that video that I mentioned earlier, you can come in and you can basically map data from one source to another, tell us where you want it to go in Stratum, and then you can run this. This is actually some open PO data that I have that I import from a header detail. You can see here I specified the category that I want to go to right here. Then I can also do some other things. In this particular scenario, I think it's interesting, and these things in StratumLink are called scenarios. This load purchase order scenario, which is the top level scenario, which incorporates these other sub-scenarios that I have here. This actually goes ahead and grabs the data from my open purchase orders, and I transformed that in what I'm looking at right here. But then on top of that, I have a second scenario that runs over that data that actually does some things like counts purchase orders. I get purchase order counts, purchase order line counts, other business logic I want to apply to create additional data out of this data allows me to do that. We load up some variables that tell us where is Stratum, where are the databases, things like that, and then we actually load all of that data we've just transformed into Stratum. And when I say load, I mean that's loading it into Stratum, and again, for those of you on the technical side, all the way through to viewer. So it's going to do a trickle load so that people are able to see all of this data when that runs. So this is great stuff. This also is a way where you can allow people to run on demand different processes. If you want to allow people to, say, update a budget or something like that, or update their purchase orders on demand, they could just come in here and run this. They don't have to wait for it to run on a schedule, or you can schedule this stuff. So you can schedule this stuff to have it run as well. So again, on StratumLink, that's a quick overview and allows you to just be able to import data from a lot of different sources into Stratum, really simplifying the ETL process and making that much, much simpler so you can expand the audience of people that can do that. There's some controls on that, who has access to it, et cetera. Obviously, we don't just want anybody updating Stratum, but we want to open the door to allow you to get more and more information in, and that's part of our strategy. So that's another piece of what's going to be available come 7.1. So that stuff's out there. As I mentioned, I've got some additional videos on that. We've got these out here, and you can take a look at those for more detail on that. And then the last thing I was going to show today was actually beyond 7.1. So I've been talking about the things in 7.1. Again, this is the What's New document. I think I've got most of these things that I talked about. I'm just scrolling through, make sure I didn't miss anything. So this document will be available to you, and you'll be able to see this. Yeah, here we go, Crow's link. So yeah, finish that up. So, and of course, at the end of this document is all the information and what's been in the last few 3, 4, 5 releases, so you can see what you're getting. And then the other thing I want to talk about is a little bit of a preview of what's coming up in the future. And there's really two things. When we talk about two key things that I wanted to mention. One, we're not quite to the prototype stage on it yet, so I can't show you anything, but be aware that one of the things that we want to do is these analytical, we would call these Stratum analytical attributes over here. And what this is going to allow you to do is separate and over and above the attributes that you have in Stratum today. So the attributes are the pickup fields, as you guys may know them, that define the things on a dimension. Your products and your customers are probably the things people care about the most. But we hear it about reps, regions, territories, things like that, where you want to add additional analytical attributes that you don't have in, say, in your ERP system or in your core master file data. You're going to be able to add and build on that set of things you already have, and again, be able to control that from outside of your traditional ETL process. So those things would become available, and that's one of the things we're working on. We call that UCA, or user-controlled attributes. But it really is curated data, user-curated data that lets you augment what you already have in Stratum with additional information. So obviously, when I get a prototype of that up, when we have that, we will make that available. And then the other thing is actually on the distribution side of things, or the data consumption side. And that's what we're doing with dashboarding. So we've got a new dashboarding solution. This is a prototype. I've taken you in here. You're seeing a prototype of what we're going to offer. I've gone to a website. This is pulling all of these things you see on the screen here are just views that I've created in Stratum. And in fact, if I go to edit mode here, I'll coyly click the edit button. What this just did, this Stratum views right here, this just went out to Stratum knowing who I am and grabbed all the views that I have available to me in my user groups. So these are all my user groups listed down the side. And if I was to open one of these, you can see these are the same views that I would have when I'm over here in Viewer to be able to see stuff. So if I was to, these are all those same view groups that I have listed here. So all the views that are in these view groups, I'm seeing over here, and that's what's listed here. And so that's interesting, Frank. So what can you do with those views is probably the bigger question. I can take one of those views. I'll just open this, like ASP trends, and I'll drag that right here. You can see the shaded area. That's where that view shows up. I'm going to move it up a little bit here, make it fit in here. Let's see, scroll down. So I can just drag that view and drop it in here, and I can make it fit in here. And I have some settings on this that I can turn stuff off and on. You can see I've got all the menus here. I can actually come in here and I can turn menus off and on. I'll hide the filtering. I'll hide the toolbar. Sure, I'll hide the navigation panel. That'll buy me some more space here. So I'll just say OK. So anyways, that allows me to see that view, see it here. When a view is in the dashboard, you can drill on it. You can drill through. You can do things. This view is all. If I wanted to have more space on this particular comparative sales view, I can pop it out and open it up in a new window for me, and allows me to do all the things you can do in a view. You guys are familiar with this. I don't have to go through this. I can close that. I also would say when I'm looking at a view, say like my current month analysis, this is showing me actually what my September sales are looking like. Say I want more detail behind this, there's a drill down feature. I can drill. This is opening a view that shows me another view that's got more detail. This is showing me by rep how I'm doing both year to date and current month for all of the data that was displayed in that pie chart. So lets me see data around that. And then the other, one of the last features here, a couple last things I wanted to show here. Down at the bottom, if I wanted to add, say, something not in Stratum, so I can go to my other option here, and I'll just drag this widget over here, and in the settings, I'll go and I'll add, I'll get something from another website. I don't know, from the Sylvan.com website. I'll call this thing Sylvan. So I can go ahead and add that. So I can add stuff here as well. So I must have screwed something up there. But anyways, you can add non-Stratum content as well. So how does that manifest itself to a user? I'm in here. If I stop editing here, so you can let a user come in here and they get a list of their dashboards and they could see them. The other thing you could do is maybe set this up as their home page. So you can see here I've gone into Stratum and I've set up my home page to be that dashboard we were just looking at, and you can see right here I have that ASP trends view. It was just added to the dashboard. So as a user, I can't change this, but I can do the pop out that I mentioned earlier. That's this arrow right here. I can do the drill down, and it'll open up a separate view for me. So it'll let me do those things. So that's a little preview of what we're doing with dashboarding. I just wanted to show you guys that. And hopefully that was a good overview for 7.1 of what we're doing for you guys. And some of the stuff that will be available, like I said, that's coming out in early January, or mid-January, I guess I should say, whatever, the 22nd, I believe. And certainly contact us. Feel free to get that information. I'm going to go ahead. We're kind of at our end of our time, but I'm going to go ahead and open the phone line. If there's anybody that has a question or wants to ask, certainly feel free, and I'll see if I can answer your question. John, I did get your question, and I'll have to check.
Hello, can you hear me?
I can.
Hi, this is Ann.
Hey, Ann.
How are you doing?
Good.
I'm interested in the newer version that you're showing a couple of the dashboard there.
Yep.
When we make changes to one of the graph or one of the view there, would it, let's say it's the territory that what we're doing, would it reflect on all the other grids, or is it that one particular view?
So Ann's question, for those of you if you couldn't hear her, was she's asking about the dashboards, and her question was if you drill down or make a filter change, say for example on one of these, does it impact all of the others? And on the first release, Ann, it will not. The second set of functionality that we're looking at here is to add slicers that impact the entire dashboard. So step one will be these things are working independently within here, and then step two will be to add the slicers in that have an impact on all of the views.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah. Any other questions about 7.1 and the stuff we're doing, or? Okay. Well, I'm going to take that as a no, and I will we'll end with that today. Hopefully, you guys saw some good stuff here. Certainly get up on 7.1. I think there's a lot of good stuff for those of you that are behind multiple releases. You know, there's a ton of great stuff that you'll want to move into and take advantage of. So that's it for today. Again, thanks for taking the time. I really appreciate it. The recording of this will be out in a few days, and then check out those other recordings where you can get a little more detail on the StratumLink stuff and the data import. Thanks again, everyone.